while I'm reading the description, I can totally feel it. I know exactly what that day felt like in being back there, and that is actually my reaction, is like, oh God, no.
Since I got up 3 hours ago, I haven't showered. All I've done is like sit in my room and read journals and like rot.
Oh.
I almost showered, but then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sweat through the podcast. So I'm just going to shower afterwards as a reward.
I took the opposite because I came home last night. I did my open aerial thing, and I was just like so fucking tired when I got home that I was like, you know what? No one's going to see me. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to shower tomorrow. And when I got up, I was like, I'll do it after the podcast. I was like, no, you feel gross. You'll feel better if you do it now.
Wow. What an epitome of self-care.
Yes. So I had the exact same argument, only showering one for me.
Well, at least one of us smells nice. But It doesn't matter because people can't smell us.
Though you made your point, and now I'm like, oh, maybe I should have paid attention to that, because I'm super nervous about agreeing to do this.
Oh, yeah? I'm interested to see what you're going to share now.
It's just really raw and gross.
I mean, that's what this is. Raw, gross. Welcome to Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where we're just raw and gross.
As soon as I said it, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, tagline.
We should just get started. Oh,
Exactly.
God. Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
And welcome back to Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast where we're raw, we're gross, but we're authentic. And more importantly, we're here.
And one of us is showered.
I'm Christina. I'm the gross one.
I'm Lauren. You'll find out later I'm the gross one, too.
Well, and I don't know. I feel so weird today. I don't know why. Ever since I woke up, I'm still sick, and I'm also like my mental health isn't the greatest. So last night I took like NyQuil, and I slept until 9 today.
NyQuil hangovers. Those are, yeah.
Well, okay, it wasn't NyQuil. It was Delsym.
Okay, but
that's the stuff that's like it stays for 12 hours.
Okay.
And so, I feel gross. I feel sad, and that's me. How are you feeling this morning?
So I actually realized as I was just doing my regular morning shit that I kind of feel okay today, which is nice because I have been feeling the really strong depression has come back like the last week or so. Like I want to say on Wednesday, I was actually considering like, should I just start self-medicating? Like not in, the way you usually say it, but as in I have 2 antidepressants that have had moderate success with me before. And I was like, should I just like start taking the ones I have left and then maybe they'll get me going enough that I'll have enough drive to actually see a psychiatrist and keep going?
Wait, you have 2 pills left or
2 types?
Types. Okay. That was me. I was like, wait, that's not going to do anything.
No. I was thinking, I have like a month or a month and a half's worth of a couple different ones. And I was like, should I just like start and maybe they'll start to take effect and I'll be driven enough to see a psychiatrist again?
Ooh, that makes me kind of nervous though, because I don't know. I feel like that could backfire.
I mean, I didn't.
Well, yeah. But the depression was so bad that you thought about it.
But yeah, it feels like that just kind of like told me like what state I was in, that I was just kind of like, I don't know, just anything that might help.
What is that? Why is everyone so depressed this week?
I don't know.
There couldn't be anything in the world going on that could possibly warrant people feeling depressed.
No, everything is perfect all the time in this lovely place we live.
Ugh. We won't even go there. I've been thinking about doing this episode all morning, and I was like, it's fine. Like, you don't need to be super prepared. Just show up and talk. And then I show up and I can't talk. And it's like this has been happening more and more. And it's really frustrating because like when I'm not doing the podcast, all I want to do is talk about this stuff. And then when I sit down with you, it's like, I don't have any words. It's like...
That sounds like my entire life.
Yeah.
No, I mean, really, though, just because, as we've talked about, I am, like, a person that has more trouble, like, actually saying these things out loud. Like, some people... I mean, obviously, in the past, you, even if not now, you've had an easier time with it because you've done it on this podcast.
Yeah, but it's never good enough. And I think I still let that get in the way. When I record, I'm like, what's the point? I'm not going to be able to get my point across. Like, I don't know. But you had an idea of something to talk about today that kind of ties into what we talked about last week. First of all, thank you everyone who listened last week. If you have not listened, Lauren and I basically just caught up on 420. We shot the shit. We talked about recovery. We talked about relapse. We talked about our eating disorders in the past and how not only is it cyclical, but it's like any addiction. It stops being exciting after a while. And
yeah.
And we were talking about how it's really boring.
It's boring. And, I feel like I've threatened to read old journal entries before, and this kind of felt like the time. What I'm going to read, I think I've probably made reference to it before, is something I had to write the first time that I was in treatment. You have to write the worst day in your disorder.
Didn't we mention that on the Rock Bottom episode?
Probably. What's interesting to me was looking back and thinking about this. I haven't reread it yet, but just like thinking and knowing what's in there, and just... Because I think we've also talked about some things like how hard it is to get help when you know you need it, and how our health system pretty much tells you like, hey, could you go back and get worse and then maybe we'll give you help? And how that's like really a terrible way of doing things. But like what's interesting to me thinking back on this is, so I went into treatment the first time not long after I had tried an IOP program for the first time. I was just going 3 hours a day, 3 times a week. And that was the first, like, any kind of treatment that I sought out. And I remember sitting in that intake, and because I'd never gone through this, and that was my fear, is being like, oh, this is not bad enough to require, this is a place that could be better served to somebody who's worse off and somebody who needs it more. But I was totally honest, and I gave all the answers that they asked for, like, what I was doing and everything. And I still, like, felt the whole time, I'm like, they're going to come back and be like, this program isn't really for you. You could probably just benefit from continuing outpatient therapy. And when I did that program, it was only like a few months before I went into treatment. So, I mean, it might have even been like as much as a month before this day that I wrote about. I mean, I was in the same spot and reading that and thinking like, I didn't even think that an IOP program would think like this girl needs some help.
Yeah.
It's like really looking back, if they'd listened to me, they should have like been responsible and said, you need more than this.
Isn't that wild? Like going back and realizing how fucked up you truly were, but also reading your own words saying, I'm not sick, like I'm not bad enough. It's truly a mind fuck. And remind listeners when that was, like when the first time you went to treatment was.
So since this is from a treatment journal, I wrote this on October 26, 2015. And so, the day I'm referring to is probably like the summer before that. It's probably in like July or something like that.
So you're about to go into treatment for the first time in 2015, and you're writing about the worst day of your disorder in the hopes that someone will see it. And are you looking for validation or?
No, it's more like this was something that we actually had to write in treatment. So I think the idea is to look back and to kind of like open your eyes and realize like, oh, wow, this, like I glorify, some of the stuff, but really this sucks ass.
All right, well.
And it did do that. But like I said, then I thought like, okay, but also I was like, while this was happening, then I was in an IOP program thinking like, they're not really going to think that this is bad enough for this. It's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Everything about this is ridiculous. But it's also so sad. Like, you told me you were going to read this, and I was kind of looking through some of my old journals too, and I was expecting to be like bored, but instead I was kind of horrified. And and I think that's what you're getting at too. Yes,
that's good, because what we've talked about recently, I mean, more like thinking of just going through it, I do feel that like this is really boring life, but I think somebody, like I had to read it in a group in treatment, and I was terrified of that as well. And I think that was like someone's first comment is they're like, that reads like a horror story.
Oh my God. And now you're going to share it with the entire internet.
Yes. Nobody listens to this podcast, right?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So you're going to read this piece that you wrote in 2015, and then we're going to talk about it, and we'll just see where the conversation goes. But I think what we really want to do today is cultivate some self-compassion for ourselves, and also, you know, maybe someone can relate and it'll spark more conversations on this topic.
And if it's okay, there are some numbers that are in it. There's obviously no weight or anything like that, but I'd rather not censor them.
Okay.
I mean, I will say it up front, you know, for anyone that doesn't want to hear, it's what I can see. I believe there's number of miles walked and there's number of laxatives taken.
Okay. Thanks for the TW.
Yeah.
Well, I'm ready. I've got my vape. I got my water. I'm hydrating. I'm ready to be traumatized.
All right. I also gave this one a title because I was listening to Portugal the Man a lot when I was writing this, and there's a line in one of the songs that says, "After you, hell should be easy."
Wait.
And that just fit.
I feel like you've referenced that before.
Probably, because I really love that line.
Yeah. All right. Let's go.
My worst day actually doesn't begin when I wake up. It's a 24-hour period that starts about 6 p.m. on a Friday. At this point, I've already taken 31 laxatives during my lunch break at work, but they haven't kicked in yet, so I feel like I'm fine to walk the first 4 miles home and just grab a train for the last few stops. And I am fine for about 3/4 of the trip. But I just grit my teeth, squeeze my eyes shut against the cramping if I have to, knowing they come on kind of like I would understand labor pains, at first over quickly and more time in between in the initial stage, but more insistent later. So I figured there's still time to run to the grocery store. Who am I kidding? Still time? That wasn't an either-or option, dipshit. You took 31 laxatives, now go get all the crap you're gonna shovel into your face hole that you've pre-compensated for. While mourning the loss of our self-checkout lanes, I tried to make my basket a variety of foods that will both be satisfying in binge mentality, but also come off as pseudo-healthy variety. It's my little stage play for the checkout person. And still, I silently beg them not to comment on anything I'm buying. I expect to hear comments about my unhealthy choices, large quantities of certain things, and odd combinations. I am prepared in case I need to give a look to cause a deep freeze in Jamaica and say something like, "I don't recall asking you to comment on my purchases, thanks." I don't get this, but I do get the worst round of cramps yet. I almost dropped to the ground in the beverage aisle, where I'm loading up on diet soda and vitamin water zero, because you still never drink calories, to top off my basket. But almost done, I can surely make it now. Pay, grab my bags. The only way out is via escalator, and I'm always stuck behind the person who refuses to walk down the entire time. It takes forever, and I'm restless. Even though I'm nearly dancing in my pants at this point, I still force myself to take off my shoes, put my purse away, and unpack my groceries before sprinting to the bathroom. Barely able to undo my pants in time by now until, the sweet release. Now keep in mind, the grocery items were just a supplement. My favorite way to start a major binge is with takeout sushi. So I put in the order on Grubhub, because why would I want to talk to someone if I don't have to? I wish the delivery person would just knock on my door, set the bag down, and walk away. This is pre-pandemic, clearly. Now they do that.
Yeah.
Immediately after ordering, It's time for another round in the bathroom. This time, I also strip down and check my weight so I know where I'm starting from, what I have to get back to, bare minimum, by the end of the weekend. Delivery times to my place always seem to be much shorter than quoted, so I might as well start waiting now. And while I'm waiting, I might as well start drinking because I need that to pretend for a few hours like all the shame, guilt, and loneliness isn't there. Kind of feeling the bathroom urge again, too. The food comes, and I figure one more bathroom trip is in order first. At this point, it's pure liquid. I think the bulk is over. Good. Uninterrupted binge time, and got most of the bad part over with first. Drink of choice tonight is Diet Dr. Pepper and vodka. Amendment: never drink calories, but booze calories don't count. Only the mixers count. I top off my favorite drinking glass, a tall glass that lists the first 150 years of Kentucky Derby winners. Place about half the takeout on a plate and move to my bedroom. I need a TV show to watch. I try to be as stimulated as possible. My phone is near me on the bed. I'm playing on my computer, games, scouring eBay, reading webcomics, or even just organizing my music and picture files while something plays on Netflix on my tablet. But my headspace has gotten so bad that it's become difficult to pick out a good show. I feel I can no longer watch anything that depicts a close sisterly relationship, happy couples in love, or young single people having fun. It just hurts too much to watch even fictional accounts of the things that I can never have. I restart the anime Full Metal Alchemist, remembering that story was rarely anything but tragic. It's nice to see some characters in more misery than me for once. Throughout the next couple hours, I am back and forth from my bedroom to the kitchen for more food, more drinks, and a couple more bathroom trips sprinkled in. About 9:30 in the p.m., I can tell this is going to be a bad night and stop to gulp down 34 more laxatives, the most I've taken at one time ever, so they can take effect by tomorrow morning. I've run out of planned binge food at this point, but have that frantic must-keep-going feeling. If I am chewing, I can't be thinking. If there is food beside me, I'm not alone. I walk with purpose to the kitchen and start throwing odd things together. A plate full of saltines with peanut butter, slices of Havarti cheese with nothing left to put on them, so I just dip chunks in barbecue sauce. And finally mixing up flour, sugar, butter, milk, and vanilla in a coffee mug as a sort of makeshift cookie dough. Throughout it all, I keep on drinking. At 11:30, I'm finally running out of steam. I'm so bloated, the bottoms of my feet feel like perfect rounded ovals. I couldn't stand straight even if I weren't drunk off my ass. I brush my teeth, because I'll never forego that one, and stumble in a haze to my bed. I'm so full at this point, it's become hard to breathe, and my heartbeat is speedily pounding away in my ears. I allow myself to succumb to sleep and hope like hell I never wake up. It's 5:30 in the a.m., but I do wake up. I'm still drunk, I'm still full, and just to complete the trifecta of misery, I don't know if this is from the round of laxatives I took earlier or the ones from later in the night kicking in early, but I go to the bathroom in the morning only to discover, for the first time since I was 3 years old, I have actually crapped my pants. Luckily, it was only a little and did not escape the edges of my panty liner, but still, what do I do with this thing? I roll it up like a diaper. It's basically what it is at this point, right? And throw it in my main trash, the one with a lid. I wish I could get back to sleep, but after all that, I'm up for good. And no, I don't think that was the second round of laxatives kicking in yet. Those are still coming. Oh joy. In the meantime, since I basically woke up still a little drunk, I now get to experience the hangover part from start to finish. At 10:30 in the a.m., I'm starting to feel the tiniest bit human again. I open a Greek yogurt and force myself to make it last 45 minutes to prove that I may be an insatiable monster one night, but I can get myself right back in control. At 11:30 in the a.m., I become aware that this would be the second round of laxatives kicking in. And by 1 o'clock, I feel like they're mostly done, so I decide to try and force at least one productive thing out of the day and get a load of laundry ready. Our laundry room is actually in the adjacent building, so this involves hauling my laundry down 3 flights of stairs and over to the basement next door. Wash, dry, sometimes a mid-drying cycle check, all involve the same trip. So laundry doubles as a mini stairs workout in my mind. But today, I'm feeling particularly lazy. So when I go to switch my clothes to the dryer, I think I will just get in a 1.5 hour walk. It really should be 3 or 4 hours, but I don't want to leave my clothes finished in the dryer too long, so I compromise. And a good thing, because did I really think that huge second dose of laxatives would let me go so easily? By the end of walking, I know I'm terribly dehydrated. I'm dizzy, swaying as I try to make my way back home, and the cramps, you better believe those are back in full force as well. It's 3:15 by the time I've made it back, knowing I first need to grab my laundry. I load the clean clothes into my laundry bag, but can barely haul myself up the stairs at this point, never mind me and a bag of laundry. 3 flights of stairs. Midway through the second, I need to take a break. The entire last flight, I only manage by grasping the railing to help pull me up each stair. I enter my apartment, panting as if I've just run a marathon. But I'm not through yet. I need to quickly dump off the laundry on my bed so I can once again run for my bathroom. The cramps are so intense that even the release of using the bathroom does not help. In between it raining from my asshole, I am rocking back and forth in agony. Something smells like iron. Oh God, not again. I was hoping that last time was a one-off thing, but there it is. The bowl is full of blood, as if I just performed a ritual sacrifice over my toilet. My body, ready to empty itself again, pulls me back down to the seat, as though weighted. I am ready to die. God, please take me now. I know it's not much to offer, but it's all I have. The pain is so bad, I don't think I can sit. But I try to stand, and my knees buckle and collapse, saying, "You ain't going nowhere, girl." I made it about 1.5 feet, fall to the bath mat, and rest my head on the hard, cool porcelain of the tub. My pants and underwear are around my ankles. I can't move to pick them up. I can't move. It doesn't matter anyway. I'm ready to die, and this is how I'll be found, in an embarrassing, compromising position. I'm Judy Garland, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis, except without the fame, so no one will actually care. It's back and forth like this for a while, crawling between the toilet when I need it and the floor by the bathtub when sitting becomes too difficult. 5 o'clock in the p.m. and I feel able to stand. I feel like the laxatives have finally done their worst and are done with me. I stand, tentatively, a newborn foal testing out her shaky legs. I smile a bit as I remember I've only had that yogurt so far today and start planning a minimal dinner. Maybe just cook up some veggies. Some broccoli, mushrooms, peppers, tossed in soy sauce with lots of spices for flavor. Maybe I should just grab another yogurt and make it an all-yogurt day. But just to be on the safe side, I pop another 2 Diurex and 28 laxatives as if so easily I forget the past 24 hours ever happened. The added insurance that I don't gain an ounce this weekend is far more important.
Oh my God. As you were that last part, I wanted to be like, no.
That's why I said it. I was like, it's like a horror story.
It's literally like a horror story. Like, well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that. Wow. I took a few notes, but towards the end, I was so like gripped by it. I just was listening. First of all, what are your thoughts reading this? Because as horrible as it was, I know that part of our illness is like romanticizing those times. And so I guess the question that I have is, do you miss that time at all?
I would say since I wrote that, I've probably, I've reshared it in other groups and things. I've probably had reason to go back and reread it once every year or two. And I will say that's one thing that they had us do that I feel like it totally serves its intended purpose, because I did that so much that I can, while I'm reading the description, I can totally feel it. I know exactly what that day felt like in being back there, and that is actually my reaction, is like, oh God, no. No.
Fuck laxatives, man. My overwhelming reaction to this story was to like clench my asshole. Yes. And like, I am so shocked you're alive, honestly. If anyone listening has never abused laxatives or even taken laxatives, like, it's scary shit. It can kill you.
Yeah. I think that's another reason why it's particularly a hard one to read, because I feel like, I mean, not to downplay this either, but so many people have shared their stories, you know, where they were like just starving themselves to death, or where they have made themselves throw up so many times. I mean, it's almost like that's still horrible and it's no easier of a life, but I feel like we've been a little desensitized because we've heard it so many times now. And this is like a not common thing that we still try to say, like, but that one, people don't really do that, right? That's gross.
Or I don't know if it's seen as not a common thing, but no one talks about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember reading Wasted in high school and reading the passages where Maria Hornbacher talks about her laxative abuse. And yeah, my reaction was like disgust, horror, maybe a little bit of curiosity.
Yeah.
Also, I kept thinking, like, instead of doing the number trigger warning, you should have done a trigger warning for shit.
No, we don't put trigger warnings for we're disgusting. You just have to know that might come with the territory. Yes.
This is the gross episode.
Yep.
But yeah, like, how do you feel having read that? And like, what are your thoughts from your current perspective as someone who is mostly kind of in recovery?
I said this, a minute ago, but I think it did surprise me this time. I mean, at this point, it's almost 10 years ago. It's 9 years ago, basically.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can still, like, absolutely 100% feel that day.
Yeah. I mean, you compared the lax pains to labor pains. That is true.
Which I don't actually know for sure because I have never done that, but it's how it's described.
No, it hurt. I mean, I went through a brief period where I was abusing laxatives, not nearly to the point that you described, but it is a lot of pain. And every time you're like, why did I do this to myself? Holy shit, I'm going to die. But then you're also like, thank God, I'm going to empty myself.
Yeah, and and then it goes away, and you think, and then you try and tell yourself, just like, oh, I was exaggerating. I can deal with a little pain, and then it comes back. Yeah.
Yeah, and the dehydration is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, one thing that people don't really consider is that abusing laxatives is a form of purging.
Yeah.
Because when you were describing that, I kept thinking how similar it was to bulimic, like experiences I've had with binging and purging via vomiting. But like, it's just a different hole. Like, that's the only difference.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
I mean, my friend called it, and like, she just learned this was a thing. This is a friend that did not know like anything about me at the time. So she did not know that it was something that I'd struggled with. And so I gave her a free pass because in her context, I did think it was kind of funny. She was just like, did you know that some people are like ass bulimic? Just like, I'm going to start calling it my ass bulimia now.
Oh my God. I hate that we're laughing about this,
but that's me too. I do feel like I'm someone that, not in a brush it off way, which I'm totally guilty of, but I need to laugh at some of this shit too, just because of realizing like, what a ridiculous thing you're doing to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we could talk about because normally I am also like, you just have to laugh at yourself. But yeah, when you were reading that story, I just felt really horrified and really sad. And I kept thinking, I know that after she's done reading, we're going to probably laugh about this, but I don't feel good laughing about it. I feel scared for you, even though I know you're in a better spot now. Like, that's just how I was feeling when you're reading it. And then I started thinking about like other people who are listening to you read that, and they're probably feeling horrified for you as well. And then I started feeling like horrified for all of us, like collectively.
Yeah.
And then feeling really helpless. Like, God, how can we possibly move on from something like that?
I think one thing that I would hope is I'm not the only one that was living like that. There's people now that are. And I mean, I hope that if anybody has experienced something like that in the past or that they kind of felt the same way, that, hearing it like that might be like, wow, that is what I was doing to myself. That is terrifying.
Yeah, I think it can be beneficial to write about those times, like you said. Sometimes you don't realize how badly you were doing until you go back and revisit. Like, we've both been talking about journaling a lot this week, revisiting our past journals.
You had some interesting ones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll share them today. I want to keep the focus on this conversation. But I did talk to my ex, Andrew, a few days ago on the phone. We were talking about, well, it was originally we were going to talk about writing, but then we started talking about mental health, as we do. And I was like, man, when we were dating, I was doing so badly and I did not see it. And he laughed at me. He was like, yeah, you were really bad.
Yeah, he's like, no shit.
Yeah. And like, I was purging all the time. I was abusing laxatives as well. And like, I was so dehydrated. My veins were like ropes.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that on myself as well. Yep.
Yeah. And again, I feel part of me with this conversation feels guilty because I know, like, I don't want it to be like, here are our war stories and here is how bad we got. And it feels like a contest. But also, I think the point is that, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. When you were talking about watching TV, that part really stuck out to me.
That part kind of makes me sad every time I read it.
Yeah. I mean, the last few weeks, I've been watching a lot of horror. Okay. And it's because, I forget what you said exactly, like, you want to watch someone else whose life is just as miserable as yours?
Yeah, it's like a lot of times, especially when I know that I am like feeling just kind of like depressed and lonely, my go-to a lot of the times has been smart comedy, or sometimes just I will do like stand-up comedy. You know, it's like I need something to feel a little better when I feel like shit, but it was just like that was the first point where it had gotten so low that it's like, you know, I probably was watching like Parks and Rec or Arrested Development for the millionth time, and I just stopped and realized I can't watch people be happy. I can't watch people that have the promise of relationships when I feel like I have no future and nothing.
Yeah.
It was just like too hard to even watch it like in fiction.
Yeah, it's an escape. It's sorry, I have so many thoughts going through my head right now. It's hard to
That's okay. I just need to chain vape after reading that, so
I know.
Take your time.
Yeah, sometimes I think like how are we alive still? And also, since we are, what are we doing to keep from going back to that place? And I guess I feel so, the reason I don't really know how to respond is that I feel like there's no like guarantee that we won't go back there again. Or like even a story as horrifying as that is still like, you are still struggling with the eating disorder thoughts. Like, I'm still not doing the best. I mean, I've been really bad, actually. I won't sugarcoat it. It's hard to show up and talk about this stuff when you're going through it. And I don't know. I just feel really sad and discouraged, I guess. I don't know. It's like you mentioned this frantic must keep going mentality.
Yeah.
I can really relate to that. You know, when you described first taking the 31 pills and then taking 34 more, I was like, oh my God, no, don't do it. Like, I was horrified, but also I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because it's like, yeah, we get started in these like cycles, and then it's like, well, I'm already here, I might as well keep going.
Yeah, it's like all of it just becomes this big, like, you really just find yourself living. I mean, this sounds like a positive thing. It's like what people tell you to do, but the only phrase I can think of is living in the moment. But I think of it like as negative here, because that's why you keep doing it, because as soon as it's over, then it's like out of sight, out of mind. It's like, that wasn't that terrible, and I need to do it again because I need to, you know, keep up whatever I believe that it's doing for me.
Yeah. Well, and tolerance is a thing, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, can you build a tolerance to laxatives?
Absolutely.
Dumb question.
I mean, if after not taking that many, you know, or not taking any, really, except for like a couple little slips, but not recently. but overall, I've not taken any for a year at this point.
Amazing.
And yes, May 1st last year, I went into treatment, so we're pretty much at a year.
I'm so fucking proud of you.
Thank you.
How do you feel having gone a year without it? Do you miss it at all? Do you ever...
That part, no.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. Fuck that.
But yeah, but you were talking about tolerance. I was going to say, yeah, after having essentially none for an entire year, if I went and took that many, I would 100% be dead.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
scary.
no way my body could respond. I think it would just like explode, literally.
Yeah. We've talked about this in the past too. Like for me, it's Benadryl. Like when I was in 2021, when I went to treatment, I was taking like 35 Benadryls a day. And I look back and I'm absolutely horrified. I'm like, I should be dead. Like at the time when people were hearing about that and they were concerned about me, I truly was, I didn't get why they were concerned. And now...
Well, no, because you've just gradually added, like one here and one there. Yeah. So it just seems like, oh, yeah, it's... I recognize it's an addiction, but, it's just what I take in a day. It's not bad.
I think that's what we need to emphasize overall is that, like, that day that you just described, that doesn't happen overnight. Like, when you first started abusing laxatives, you weren't taking 30 at a time. It never starts out like that.
Right. In fact, I had all of that stuff recorded on a calendar because of course. Well, because at some point, it's like there was something like I didn't think I was ever going to stop, but I felt like maybe someday I'll look back. If I can look back at this, then I will realize the extent of what I have done to myself. I don't know if I want to leave a legacy or what, but that calendar was a 2013 calendar. So that's where I started. And then, I just kept like amending like the day the next year. So, I mean, that was it, like 2+ years in the making to get to that day.
Yeah. It never starts out that bad. And I'm just so happy that you aren't doing that anymore. And I'm really fucking proud of you. And I'm proud of you for reading that, too. Yeah.
Now I'm sitting here just kind of like wiggling because I'm like, oh, she's giving me compliments.
Well, yes, I'll stop.
Okay. I think the other part that kind of gets me every time is the point near the end where it's just like, because I think we've talked about this before, too, that even at times feeling like we don't care about our lives or, having some suicidal feelings. I think both of us have said we're kind of always afraid of the unknown, though. And that's something that stops. And that was definitely like one of the very few times where it like just everything got so bad that I was like, no, I do not care. Let's just be done with it.
Oh, man. As you said that, I was thinking back to a time where it was the time that I did take an absurd amount of Benadryl. And in my tiny studio in Seattle, I was lying on the concrete floor, the cold concrete floor, with my cheek to the ground. Yep. And I could feel my breathing going away. Like,
oh, God.
Benadryl slows your respiratory system. And so if you take enough of it, you get to the point where you feel like you're having to manually breathe. Ooh. And so I could feel myself having to manually breathe, and I knew I really did feel like I was going to fall asleep and not wake up. And in that moment, I was relieved. But then when I woke up, like you said, and part of you is disappointed, but also there was a part of me that was like, oh, thank God. Like I don't know. But then you just start doing it again. Right.
Because again, so easily you forget like that exact moment you were in. You're just like, well, I made it, so it wasn't that bad.
And that's why it's so important to document it. Like you said you wanted to leave a legacy. Like, I don't know if I would use that word exactly, but I definitely have felt that pull my whole life to document my pain. I mean, yeah, since I was a kid, I've been writing for no one in particular, but a part of me knew that I had to record it because I wanted to remind myself how bad it was. And I'm glad I did, because like there's some stuff I was reading about this morning that I totally forgot about. And it makes so much sense. Like, I don't know. I think life is just trying to figure yourself out. Yeah. And that means examining these really ugly times in your life. And I mean, here's a question. Do you feel shame or guilt when you read that?
I feel like some amount of shame. It's not as bad as it was in the past, maybe because I've gotten kind of desensitized to it. And I think most of that does come from, like we said earlier, that this particular behavior is not one that people really talk about.
Yeah.
So
shame just because people might, like assumptions people might make about you? Or
yeah, it feels, because it doesn't get talked about, so it kind of feels like admitting to this like dirty secret, like, hey, we as a world collectively agreed we're not going to talk about this one.
Yeah. But this is Pickles and Vodka, where we talk about everything.
That's right.
So, God, I don't even know where to go from here. I'm going to be thinking about that all week.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say at this point, because, like I said, I've read it a few times.
Yeah.
No, never enjoy it.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable, and I don't know, who could relate? Like, please reach out.
Yeah, tell me that I'm not just ridiculous.
You're not ridiculous. I promise you're not ridiculous. Troubled, maybe. Not ridiculous. None of us are ridiculous. We're sick. Ooh, here's another question. In the past, Do you feel like revisiting stuff like that has been triggering for you more than it's been helpful?
Yes.
Let's
And
talk about
I think
that.
Yes, because I think we were starting to go to that conversation and got sidetracked.
Yeah.
We had a tangent. But I think like different things, like in that case, never. But I've recorded things in other like bad states I've been in, and that might just be, you know, that I wasn't feeding myself or allowing myself like water, because, you know, that will show up on the scale too. And so, you know, I might have just been like laying there feeling like dehydrated and miserable, but I have, you know, sometimes looked back on some of that and just been like, oh yeah, but look at how small I was then. I could just lay there and feel, you know, like I can't move from dehydration. That's not terrible, because, you know, something was working. And you just feel kind of, yeah, like this, like a nostalgia for it.
Yeah. Is there a sad word for nostalgia? Like,
I feel like in one of our first episodes we did together, we discussed this. Because we discussed nostalgia
wistfulness.
Versus wistfulness.
Yes.
Which I think I would probably use. And there was a third one. I don't remember what it was.
Oh, man.
And yeah, wistful I always think of as looking back, but sad.
So I found the journal entry where I describe making myself throw up for the very first time in 2009. And afterwards, I kind of like justify it to my journal. I'm like, it's not about weight. It's not about the way I look. I mean, sure, part of it is that, but mostly I just feel like hold on, I'm going to try to find it.
I do have to say, I love how we do justify that kind of stuff to ourselves, where it's like, it's not about this, because I'm not that sort of person. I mean, except that it is, but really it's not. Like we do that so much.
Yeah. Oh man, okay, I found it. The thing I'm afraid no one will understand is that it's not about the food or my weight. Okay, maybe those are two factors, but the main reason I make myself throw up and keep myself from enjoying the foods I love is my need to punish myself. You could say that bulimia is taking the place of self-injury in my life, although that really wouldn't be true. The only reason I'm not cutting these days is because my parents watch me like a hawk. An eating disorder is just a stand-in coping method, just another way to make me suffer. It makes no difference what the methods are. But then I go on to describe how like nice it feels to look at the scale and see the number going down, and looking in the mirror and seeing someone who is losing weight, but knowing that she's not me.
You know, people talk about like symptom swapping. I've used things like that to justify stuff like that coming in particular, like the amount of walking that I got up to, and like how it felt like I had to do it every day.
Oh my God, yeah.
But you know, when that was starting, then I justified that, of course, because I was just like, okay, so I know this can be a problem, but I mean, come on, who is going to say like, wow, you should not walk versus you should not take a handful of laxatives? I'm like, one of them clearly sounds way healthier, so I'm doing the better one. And, and then I end up doing both anyways, so.
Well, and even walking can get to the point where it's troubling. Like,
the thing is, I definitely got to a point where it was too much and it was not good, but, that's an easier one to convince yourself of because it's like, walking, how can that be bad?
It's almost like you have to deal with the shit in your brain before, or until you do that, everything is going to be problematic.
It's almost like we're mentally unstable.
It's almost like we're sick.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, yesterday is a great example of that. I have been struggling with overexercise the last few weeks, and yesterday, for the first time, I just didn't because my feet hurt so much and my lungs were so bad from all the coughing I've been doing. I was just so exhausted. I just lay in bed most of the day and I still feel really guilty about it. But the presence of guilt makes me realize like, oh, this is becoming a problem. Like normal people would be able to just skip a day. And
because that's literally your body telling you what it needs at that point.
No, and at this point, I know that I'm getting better at listening to my body and honoring its needs, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And half the time, I'll just end up overcompensating when I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
We're so shitty to ourselves. No pun intended.
I know. I don't have an answer for that. But I'm always just kind of like, what did I ever do to myself to think that I deserve this?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I know for me, a lot of it comes down to the religious stuff. Mm-hmm. Just believing that without God, I'm a terrible person and I need to be rescued and nothing I do will ever change how flawed I am. And, a lot of it also has to do with being a people pleaser and wanting to be the best person we possibly can be and do as much as we possibly can and make everyone happy and be rewarded for that. And of course, that's impossible. Mm-hmm. So, man, this is dark.
It is. I don't know if I've ever shared this before, but something that I do often, particularly when I feel uncomfortable, is I start reading anything that I can see backwards.
Ooh, I think you mentioned going to the grocery store and reading labels backwards.
Probably.
Once.
But I just wanted you to know that at some point that I was just sitting here going, "Deef milk." That's clean feed backwards.
Deep milk. Oh my god. Wait, what's pickles and vodka backwards? Active
dna cell kip.
Oh my god.
Active dna cell kip. That's our podcast.
That's our podcast. Wow. I don't know how to end this, but
I was thinking that too as we've been going on. I was like, that's how we end it. Just be going,
yeah. And again, I'm doing that thing where I'm like, how can we leave it on a positive note? How can we take a lesson from all this?
How can we put it in a neat little positive bow?
A neat little positive bow. Yep. But you can't. Like something like that, I think the point is that it's horrible and there's no repackaging it in a way that is neat or positive.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I guess that was a horrible time. It happened. I can't pretend like it didn't. But as I said, at least every time I've read it, I've never wanted to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's the lesson. It's like, don't be afraid to look into the past at the ugliness.
There's a reason to admit that stuff to yourself. And, that reason might not come up for 3 years when you look back and say like, okay, we're not there anymore. Thank God.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if listeners have similar things that they've written about years ago. Mm-hmm. And maybe this will motivate them to look back, in which case I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But let us know in any case.
Yeah, just let us know anything that brought up in you.
Yeah, what did that bring up in you? I know that I'm going to be journaling a lot about that. These feelings. Maybe next week we'll share more.
All right.
I'm not doing good.
Oh.
But it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Everything's fine. Thank you for joining us today, lovely listener. We're sorry that we're such messes.
We're not sorry. We're messes and deal with it.
We're messes, deal with it. Ooh, that should have been our tagline.
Oh, maybe a future one.
Or we could have done a tagline that had to do with poop. If I had known, I would have prepared. Welcome to Pickles and Vodka, where the shit hits the fan.
Literally.
Oh my God. I guess follow us.
It won't be this all the time.
Yeah, maybe next week we'll be all better and we'll have some good news to share.
Maybe we'll do a movie review.
Maybe.
That would lighten things up a bit.
Yeah, it's been a while since we did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Tell a friend about our podcast because that really helps. We haven't asked people to do that in a while. Word of mouth reigns supreme over the algorithm. I stand by that.
I agree completely.
Yeah, but if you want, we're on Instagram at Pickles and Vodka Podcast, Facebook, Pickles and Vodka, a mental health podcast. My personal Instagram is at xtinajumper, and I also have a Substack where I post really vulnerable shit, and that is xtinajumper.substack.com. Lauren, where can they find you?
I mostly just float around Instagram. Sometimes I check the Pickles and Vodka podcast at Instagram as well. My dog is an Instagram star, so I'm often there, Pico Suave. And occasionally I have started going back to my personal Instagram, which is Lauren AFH.
Yes. And we also have a weekly support group that meets online. It's called Pickles Anonymous. You can join by going to join.freeconferencecall.com/picklesanonymous, and that's Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard.
Yes.
We may or may not talk about shit today.
We talk about a variety of topics. They're not always shit.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I guess that's it for now. And we'll see you next week. Hopefully less traumatized.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.